All right. uh, okay, I bumped my head. Anyways, let me check, make sure audio is good. Check, 1, 2, audio is good. All right, let's get into this today. Right. First reading for today, Tyson food is poisoning our water. By Zach Farber, May 13th, 2024, 3-minute read. The pictures of, I believe, a Tyson factory. All right, and the reading goes, a recent report published by the Union of Concerned Scientists found that Tyson Food is guilty of dumping hundreds of millions of pounds of pollutants into U.S. waterways from 2018 to 2022. Using data from the Environmental Protection Agency, USCS, determined that Tyson processing plants dumped nearly 372 million pounds of pollutants into waterways during that time. Tyson's pollution of Illinois, Nebraska, and Missouri accounted for more than half of the total. Nebraska alone was subjected to 111 million pounds of dumping, including over 4 million pounds of nitrate. Nitrate is known to cause central nervous system cancer in children. According to UCS, quote, the agricultural industry is the largest consumer of fresh water worldwide, and meat and poultry processors such as Tyson Foods account for nearly 1/3 of the freshwater consumption, end quote. Tyson generated over 87 billion gallons of wastewater in just 5 years, enough to fill 177,000 Olympic swimming pools. The wastewater contains animal blood and feces, nutrients that can deplete oxygen in waterways, as well as pathogens and microorganisms. The waste is a threat to both surface and groundwater quality. Furthermore, meat plant discharges account for only a fraction of the industry's total water pollution. The slaughtering process, including feeding, contributes to countless levels of air, water, noise, and soil pollution. There has been up to a 1,500% increase in reactive nitrogen presence in waterways over the past 100 years. The impact of high concentrations of pollution on super-exploited communities cannot be understated. A September 2021 EPA screening found that nearly 3 out of every 4 meat industry water polluting facilities are within 1 mile of communities that are impacted by other economic, health, and environmental struggles. This is no accident, as it is consistent with the placement of factories, landfills, and nuclear power plants, for example. Tyson has 123 food processing plants across the country. Polluted drinking water can cause gastrointestinal illness, nervous system damage, reproductive harm, chronic illness, as mentioned previously, cancer. Not to mention that in 2022, 27.6 million people in the United States reported they lack health insurance. U.S. meat industry pollutants reach outside its borders as well. A past UCS report found that nitrogen fertilizer runoff is responsible for $2.4 billion worth of damage to fisheries and marine ecosystems in the Gulf of Mexico. Who's to blame? Tyson food executives certainly hold individual responsibility for their criminal negligence and active harm to communities across the country. There is no excuse or justification for their villainous actions. However, it is no accident or anomaly that Tyson is able to get away with poisoning millions of working-class people every day. The EPA claims that out of 7,000 meat processing plants in the country, only 300 have any mandatory monitoring requirements and limits for pollution at all. Under U.S. capitalism, corporations are free to poison our food and water while our tax dollars subsidize their industries. Over the years, Tyson Foods has received $131,514,500 in subsidies from states and local governments and $4.72 million in local, state, and federal levels loans and bailouts. Many argue that the U.S. factory farming industry should be structured and regulated more like that in European countries. Many argue that the U.S. factory farming industry should be structured and regulated more like that in European countries. While that would be a step forward in many respects, food regulations in the United States and Europe are quite similar, and many of the pollution and health problems persist as a result. Unfortunately, profits reigns supreme in Europe too. This is most recently evidenced Europe. This is most recently evidenced Europe's biggest pork producer, Danish Crown, simply being slapped on the wrist for falsely advertising to consumers about their environmental impact. Struggling for more regulations and accountability for corporate food tie-ins is progressive. However, what is ultimately needed is an overhaul of the cruel factory farming industry, which operates to generate massive profits and wealth for a few ultra-rich executives while the quality of our food, air and land and water suffers. We can't replace it with a planned socialist. We can replace it with a planned socialist system, which will guarantee that nobody goes hungry. Food is produced to meet everyone's needs rather than for profit, and criminals like the Tyson food executives face justice. Let me read that again. We can replace it with a planned socialist system, which will guarantee that nobody goes hungry. Food is produced to meet everyone's needs rather than for profit, and criminals like the Tyson food executives face justice. The featured photo was of the Tyson Food Jefferson plant in Wisconsin in 2013. All right, so yeah, this is a huge problem. This always leads back to capitalism, right? Ghoulish people making profit however they can, breaking rules, knowing that breaking the rules are only going to give them a small slap on the wrist of a fine. When the profits outweigh the consequences, they're obviously going to take the profit route, no matter how ghoulish or criminal it is. This is why we always say capitalism rewards the worst of us, not the best in us. It doesn't drive innovation as much as people think. To a point, to an extent, perhaps that was useful, but it was never necessary in order to motivate people. Before capitalism, people were motivated to invent things either as well. That's not an argument or a debate that I want to get into. Let's keep focused on Tyson here and food industry. I mean, it's such a waste of resources to begin with. The amount of meat that Americans consume is more than the needed requirements if you're a meat eater. Not only that, but scientifically, it's been proven plenty of times already by vegans and vegetarians and doctors that we don't need meat to survive. We have gone beyond that, well beyond that now. And anyone excusing meat, just admit that you just enjoy the taste or you just have a habit for it, not that it's necessary. In my personal experience, I eat meat once in a while. I'm not going to deny that I eat it. But I will also admit that I know it's not necessary. I don't need to eat meat. I've gone 5 days, I've gone 2 weeks, I've gone a few weeks without meat. It's not a big deal. Right now, I'm not in a full vegetarian or vegan diet, but I do reduce my meat intake as much as possible. And I also do advocate for people being vegan or vegetarian, as well as myself, as I try to be as much as possible. The meat industry is unnecessary, but I do understand that people have a preference to meat. I hope it's not an unhealthy one. I hope people are properly educated to understand that they don't need a 16-ounce steak every day. And that I think the amount is like an ounce and a half of meat every day is enough for like all the proteins necessary, even B12 or something like that. But anyways, back to Tyson and these meat industries. It's just horrible. It's just horrible that we're willing to let these corporations pretty much run the world and run policies all over the map for their riches, just so that we can get steak for like $10 a pound or whatever. It's not worth it. It's not worth it if you care about the environment, if you care about your neighbors, if you care about your children, if you care about your loved ones, if you are fully self-indulged, and don't care about the world or life. If you're a nihilist, I understand. You just want to eat meat and eat yourself to death. I guess that's a choice. But for someone like myself, that follow Stoicism and the pillars of virtue, the pillars of Stoicism, which are like justice, temperance, knowledge, and virtue. Virtue being that you always thrive to be the best person you can be for yourself and for those around you and for the rest of the world. Um, yeah, this is just not a healthy or productive way of taking care of the planet or taking care of the people around you by letting these meat industries uh, just run amok around the world and fully misutilize our resources like water and farming land. It's just besides the pollution of water, the pollution of the ground, the pollution of the air, the compost. It's just horrible. I mean, I've seen documentaries about it. Not a big fan. I do try to wing. Like I said, I try to wing myself off meat as much as possible. And it's one of those things, one of those little side projects personally for myself, where eventually I plan to maybe go full vegetarian or just really consume as little meat as possible to bringing it down to like maybe once a week or something. What that entails for me is mostly finding recipes that are good that will replace meat intake so that I don't have to bother missing meat in general. And I'm not talking about uh, veggie burgers that look and taste like hamburgers. I don't think that's realistic, but veggie burgers that actually taste like good veggie burgers, you know, that make me say, well, I taste that and taste better than any hamburger anyway. So why bother with a hamburger, right? Cool. So that's my thoughts on this, my rambling. Uh, I hope people take something positive out of it. Comment if you feel like it. If you don't, it's also okay. Uh, Move on to the next article. Tyson Food. Okay. It's allergy season, so I'm getting over a small allergy cold or hay fever. I also have a little ice pack here because I bumped my forehead on the desk rushing in here. It's not that bad though, but I just want to make sure it doesn't lump up like like it usually does because I'm a bit of a bit clumsy. All right, let's see here. That was Tyson Food, NewsClick founder. All right, here we go. Next article titled NewsClick founder. Let me check. Always need to do this. Just checking my audio. Check 1 2. All right, so that's audio is good. Maybe I should get a little closer. Yeah, that looks good. All right. All right, so let's carry on here. Yum, yum, yum. All right, NewsClick founder Prabir Purkayastha to be released on bail after arrest ruled illegal. Ooh. This article is from People's Dispatch, May 15th, 2024, 3-minute read. Reposted from People's Dispatch. Nice. If you want more articles from People's Dispatch, the hyperlink is right there. Follow the little finger there. Right there. All right. The Indian Supreme Court ordered the immediate release of author and journalist Prabir Purkayastha on Wednesday, May 15th, terming his arrest by the Delhi police in October last year illegal. The court questioned the haste with which police executed the NewsClick founder's arrest, noting that they did not even follow the basic procedures. The court noted that, in complete violation of the principles of natural justice and court's previous orders, the copy of the remand application to Prabir's lawyer was given hours after the remand order against him was issued at 6 p.m. on October 4th, 2023. The arrest took place after hundreds of officers carried out extensive raids at around 100 different locations across New Delhi on October 3rd. In this unprecedented mass raid, they detained dozens of people, confiscated dozens of electronic devices and other items, and interrogated past and current employees of NewsClick for hours. With his arrest ruled illegal, the court ordered Praveer's immediate release on bail, noting a charge sheet has been filed in the case. Quote, though we would have released him without surety, but since charge sheets has been filed, we've released him with surety and bail bond, end quote, the court observed. The Supreme Court's hearing of the case concluded on April 30th, but it had reserved its verdict at the time, which was pronounced on Wednesday, May 15th. As per the Supreme Court order, the condition of the bail would be fixed by the trial court. 77-year-old Praveer has spent more than 7 months in jail suffering from multiple health conditions. After being given repeated extensions by the court, the Delhi police finally filed an over 8,000-page charge sheet last month against Praveer and NewsClick leveling charges under the country's draconian Anti-Terror Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, UAPA. NewsClick has termed the charge sheet, quote, baseless, end quote, and concocted. Praveer's arrest was condemned by progressive sections in India and from across the world. They had termed it an assault on media freedom by India's right-wing government led by the Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, and have been demanding Praveer's immediate release. So here's a Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter, post of Vijay Prashad. Vijay writes a thread here, 1, 2, 3, from Counterpunch. I'll just read some of it. My friend Praveer and Amit are in jail in India for their work in the media. That was October 3rd, 2023. It says, on October 3rd, 2023, the day after MK Gandhi's birthday, over 500 officers of the Delhi police fanned out across India to detain either at, and then the next posting, why is Praveer in jail? Only thing that is clear is that he is in prison as part of a wider attack by the Indian government against press freedom and against any dissent. The day after his arrest, I wrote this article on the situation at that time. So Counterpunch has a hyperlink article here if people want to click. The final thread, Praveer Purkayasha and I first met in Delhi years ago within the struggles to democratize India and to establish reason as the foundation of democracy. We wrote a book together, Enron Blowout, and built NewsClick in together. He has been in prison since October 3rd. So that's the Twitter X posting. New York Times hit job. The progressive independent news outlet has been subject to harassment by different government agencies for years. However, the attacks of NewsClick intensified following the publication of a hit piece in the, quote, paper of record, end quote, the New York Times. The New York Times article has accused NewsClick of being a part of the larger pro-China propaganda machinery funded by the Communist Party of China without providing any substantial evidence. The allegations were rubbished by the NewsClick and other organizations and individuals as a hit job with the intention of maligning their image and providing basis to the state to prosecute them. In India, the piece served exactly that purpose, providing fodder to both corporate media and BJP government officials who went into a frenzy attacking NewsClick, Praveer, and other members of the publication, citing the NYT article. Just 2 months after its publication on October 3rd, extensive raids were conducted and FIR was filed by the Delhi police under UAPA and Praveer was arrested. NewsClick has consistently vowed to fight the allegations against the organization and Praveer in the courts. A good day for independent media. A court order was welcomed by progressive groups in India who saluted the judgment of the court and asserted that Praveer's release is a boost for the free and independent media in that country. All right, so here's another Twitter or X post by Leftward Books. Yes, Praveer Purkayastha, brave soldier of truth, will be free. Can't wait to welcome our dear friend, comrade, and author. All right, then the next post by Bar and Bench, hashtag breaking Supreme Court to hold that the remand order of Prabir Purkayastha, the editor-in-chief of online news portal at NewsClicken, was invalid. Hold's arrest was not correct by at Delhi police in connection with the case under the Law Unlawful Activities Prevention Act directs release. NewsClick wrote in a statement that the court decision marked, quote, a good day for independent media, end quote. Thomas Isaac, former finance minister in Kerala's left-front government, in a post on X, said that the judgment, quote, exposes arbitrariness of police and their scant respect for legal procedure under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, end quote. He also claimed that the judgment, quote, enhances credibility of alternative media that is already playing a seminal role in ongoing national elections in India, end quote. So here's another Twitter X post by Tista Setavad. Brave, courageous, principled, Prabir Purkayastha at NewsClick. A good day for independent media. Article headline, NewsClick welcomes the Supreme Court verdict quashing the illegal arrest of our editor-in-chief, Prabir Purkayastha. This is a good day for independent media. All right. Continue on with the article, asserting that the, quote, in a democracy, a government cannot unleash central agencies against a free press, especially in the absence of due process, end quote, and, quote, laws must not be weaponized against journalists, putting their life, liberty, and livelihood at risk, end quote. A statement by the Digipub News India Foundation urged that the government of India, quote, to exercise caution and restraint in its deliberate and regressive war against media houses it doesn't agree with, end quote. NewsClick also stated that, quote, the targeting of independent media outfits and journalists that provide coverage of dissent has become a concerning trend in India, end quote. The progressive media outlet said it will continue its legal fight in the case and against this trend through its work. All right, so this is always a common trend in authoritarian parties. Not just conservative, but for example, they're conservative. But for example, here this year, the Democratic parties, as well as the Republican Party, have become quite authoritarian in the way that they try to silence dissent. To me, it's more a concern of just basic human liberties to speak the truth and let the truth win in the battleground of debates. If you state a fact and it can be proven, then you have the upper hand, right? Any government, any party that doesn't allow its people to speak and is obviously hiding something, in my opinion, because the job of the government should not be to suppress or oppress journalists or people for that matter, but to educate them. If you see, for example, a print of something that's false, then yeah, they should be held. The printing company should be held accountable. All right. But not only that, but I think what America lacks is a lot more debate. There's a lot of this going on where you see a lot of quote unquote journalists that speak out and give their opinions that are totally baseless, that totally reference no actual journalistic time points or facts. And they speak it like it's truth, right? Excuse me, I need this halls because my throat's sore. So this is an example of an authoritarian government that wants to use the rod or a steel hand to control the people, to subdue the people. And it just sends an example out. It sends a message out to other journalists. It's like, you don't cross us, or this is what will happen to you. I mean, think about how long it took them to release him. He was in there since October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. Well over 6-7 months now, almost 8 months. It's cruel, right? It's totally it's unheard of. First of all, for them to take 8 months to let him go, It's absurd, and it's just a clear message here from governments, where if they don't like what you're saying, they'll make an example of you. And it's not just in India; it's here in America as well. Whether it's Republican or Democratic, they did it to Assange. They've been doing it to Assange for decades now, and neither party pardons him. Right? They did it to Snowden, and neither party pardons him. They've done it to many people, like Chelsea, I believe is his name. Um, I forgot his name is, but one of the officers that was a whistleblower as well. Um, when you do things that are actually patriotic or heroic, they don't reward you for them. They smear you. They call you a whistleblower. They try to make an example of you. They do it with journalists as well. And I mean, like, who's going to hold the New York Times accountable for their smear piece on Prabir? Will he get to sue the New York Times for slander? For trying to connect him as a direct spy to China? I don't know. So that appears like what they tried to do. Of course, my thought process is, with plenty of time and patience, you're going to have a decent conversation with somebody and lay out the facts. And you can tell if they're there just to represent or if they're there just to learn. If you're speaking to any working class person next to you, most working class people, you can tell if they are a good faith actor or a bad faith actor, if they actually want to listen and if they're willing to grow, and switch opinions if necessary. There's people that you're going to speak to that you just can't change. They just don't want to. They want to keep pushing forward with the lie that they've been fed or misrepresentation. Why waste your energy with them? Let life handle them. Maybe they come back later. I don't know. All you have to do is lay out the facts, plant the seeds, plant the truth, and people might become enlightened. And I think that is what the governments fear most, that people become enlightened or people are awakened somehow to the truth that the system that they've been indoctrinated to or been fed all their lives, it's not the most efficient and it's not the best thing for humanity. Capitalism worldwide is a disease. Say it straight up, just like that. It's inefficient. It rewards the worst people. Just look at your world leaders. They're the worst people in the world. They can't even get together to stop a genocide in Palestine. So they're useless. All they're doing is taking checks, taking bribes. Okay, so that's my take on this for today. Let's see if there's anyone around commenting or not. No comments. Good. We can move on. All right, here we go. Let me have another little drink here. Let me check the audio again one more time just to make sure. Test 1 2. Audio's good. All right, we can go back. This article heading reads, UAW 4811 authorizes strike across UC campuses defending right to protest for Palestine. Article by Desmond Fonseca, UAW 4811 member, May 15th, 2024. The photo is police crack down on student protesters at UC Irvine, credit liberation photo. I wonder if these officers think they look tough. They go home and they see this picture and they're like, yeah, we've taught them a lesson, little brats. I don't know, man. If I was an officer, I would dread going into work that day. Yeah, you need to go into work and assault a bunch of little kids or the youth of the nation that are going to lead the world. You need to go assault them. Okay. I would find another job. On May 15th, 2024, as the article reads, the 76th anniversary of the Nakba, UAW 4811 members across the University of California took the historic step to authorize a strike in defense of workers' rights to peacefully protest in support of Palestine. 20,000 workers participated in the vote with a week's notice, with 80% voting yes. The decision to call for a strike authorization vote was made by the union in response to the brutal state-sanctioned assault on the Gaza Solidarity encampment at UCLA, where a mob of Zionists assaulted a peaceful gathering of students and workers with tear gas, and blunt objects. Various law enforcement agencies stood by for hours as the attack continued unabated, only to conduct a violent sweep of the encampment the following day, firing rubber bullets and flashbangs at protesters. Over 200 students, workers, faculty, and community members were arrested for exercising their right to free speech and protest. At the University of California, San Diego, dozens of students and workers were also attacked and arrested by law enforcement during a peaceful encampment protest on May 6. The strike vote comes on the heels of the nationwide campus movement of Palestine solidarity encampments, which was initially sparked by Columbia University students. The encampment themselves were a major advance of the broader movement for a free Palestine, which has seen millions of Americans take to the streets in defiance of the United States government's unconditional support of Israel's genocidal bombing and siege of Gaza. Despite the fact that the majority of Americans oppose U.S. foreign policy, the students leading the encampment movement have been demonized by the mainstream media and relentlessly attacked by law enforcement agencies across the country. In the face of this repression, the students' movement has been steadfast in their solidarity with Palestinian resistance and in their continuing to challenge imperialism within the belly of the beast. But this movement has done even more. The strike vote taken by UAW 4811 highlights how the students' encampments have altered the terrain of struggle so that organized labor can now take decisive action in support of Palestine. Unionized university workers across the country have taken part in the encampments and made explicit calls in support of the broader movement for Palestine. Elected leaders of academic work unions at Columbia, MIT, USC, and University of California, and more, have been at the front lines of the dramatic encampment struggles, experiencing firsthand, and at their workplace no less, the draconian repressive measures taken by right-wing Zionist mobs, university administration, and the state. The scale of violence at UCLA and UCSD in particular provided the immediate spark for UAW 4811's historic decision to authorize a strike, but there is also a wider context which empowered the workers of UAW 4811 to take action. In November of 2022, workers in UAW 2865, UAW 5810, and Student Researchers United, all now amalgamated into UAW 4811, launched the largest strike in the history of U.S. higher education, which would last for over a month. The contract campaign was meticulously planned and coordinated for months, organizing mass turnout, participation, and militancy amongst the 48,000 workers represented across the then different unions. Winning industry-setting benefits and protections, union members then had to deal with the administration's refusal to uphold the agreement, which culminated in the arrest of 3 workers at UCSD in June of 2023 who were peacefully protesting at university's violation of the workers' hard-won contract. With an already militant and organized membership, the union launched and eventually won a statewide campaign to drop the illegal retaliatory charges. In summary, militant labor organization was not new to UAW 4811. Neither was standing against the criminal Israeli occupation of Palestine new to 4811. A few days after the Palestinian resistance launched a major counteroffensive against the occupying forces, the executive board of the Graduate Student Worker Union issued a statement unequivocally condemning, quote, the decades-long violent occupation of Palestine, end quote, which led to the events of October 7th, and called for, quote, dismantling of the occupation and apartheid system in Israel, Palestine, end quote. They did so citing the historic example of unions who took courageous positions against the war in Vietnam and apartheid in South Africa a month later. The presidents of both UAW 2865 and 5810, now merged into 4811, were amongst the chief signers of the Answer Coalition's letter calling on labor leaders to push for an end to the war on Gaza and cutting of aid to Israel. This came to a head on December 1st when the UAW International Executive Board became the largest union in the country to call for a permanent ceasefire, doing so in a press conference in front of the White House led by Region 9A Director Brandon Mancia. By the time the mass movement in solidarity with the Palestinian people had reached UCLA in a major escalation within the national context of a burgeoning student movement, the encampments academic workers organized with UAW 4811 had already staked a clear position in solidarity with the righteous struggle of Palestinians and had the infrastructure to mobilize its members in the face of university repression. This example is an important lesson to the rest of the labor movements in the United States. The authorization of a strike in defense of workers' rights to protest in support of Palestine is a major step forward for the U.S. labor movement and its ability to take clear anti-imperialist positions. Palestine is a moral issue, yes, but the actions and the words of UAW 4811 show clearly that it is a workers' issue as well. In a statement passed a week before the UAW IEB called for a permanent ceasefire, the union's executive board declared that, quote, it is only natural that the international working class would take up the cause of the Palestinian people in Gaza, end quote, and reiterated that, quote, instead of subsidizing violence, the Biden administration must fund the needs of working people, end quote. As billions of dollars of U.S.-made and funded weapons kill thousands of Palestinians, and leadership of UAW 4811 has long articulated clearly that the issue of Palestine is an issue which has a direct impact on the U.S. working class. The particularities of the university as a space, combined with the recent rise of militant and highly organized academic worker unions across the country, made this historic moment possible. But ultimately, such a bold decision requires political clarity and will from union leadership, which UAW 4811 has been a consistent example of. Now that university administrations across the country and the law enforcement agencies Now that university administrations across the country and the law enforcement agencies they work hand in hand with have clearly cast their lot with the genocidal pariah state of Israel and effectively criminalized peaceful protest unions, particularly those on college campuses, such as UAW 4811, have an opportunity to enter the movement by withholding their labor. UAW worker actions represent just the beginning of a larger shift within a labor movement and the wider anti-imperialist movement in the United States. All right. Give me a second to catch my breath here. And that's great. That's great news. I think my thought process out of this right away is like, how can we make that go national? You know, it's UAW mostly across Southern California. The students led the charge. Police and Zionists retaliated violently against them, and the union saw this as an opportunity to withhold their labor because it's the moral and just thing to do when you clearly see that those in power are siding with genocide, which is so ghoulish and disgusting. I mean, like, the bar is so low. It's so horrible. Like, it'd be one thing to just stand by and watch, but no, I mean, our government is literally funding this genocide, you know, and it's disgusting. And I, how people are not appalled is quite, just shows how sick so many people in this nation are mentally sick. I'm not the type of person to call people bad people. I don't think there's such a thing. I think there's people that require a lot of rehab, uh, a lot of deprogramming, and require a lot of enlightenment. Um, there's so many people in America that, for some reason or another, whether it's religious or personal, they they totally support Israel, and they support these Zionist actions, and it has nothing to do with Judaism. I totally respect all religions, but this Zionist plan is a colonizing apartheid fascist regime that is oppressing other people for their land and literally taking their land away from them. Like there's videos online, like you can't deny there's literal videos of them taking the land from a family and giving it to a Jewish person, and the Jewish person saying that they have to take it, otherwise somebody else will. Like, come on. Um, it's disgusting. You got people like Trump, Biden, and RFK that are all three just simping for the votes of all these ghoulish Zionists in America and won't stand up for actual moral judgment and what's best for the health of Americans and the health of the world in general. Like, I just think of how mentally ill most people are to be thinking this way. That they even have the mentality to say, "Well, I'm going to vote for one of these three," even though all of them are practically complicit in genocide. Like, why? Why would you? Like, they're murderers, you know? Uh, it's crazy. It's a crazy time. But I know I'm not voting for any of them. There's nothing to vote for there. There's nothing worth saving there. Um, Obviously, for me, as a far leftist, it's either going to be Claudia or Joe. That's it. They have plans that I support. They support the working class, not the elites. That's another thing. Like, people still falling for this like elite uh, legacy candidates. Like, you think billionaires are going to work for the working class? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, all Trump did was like give the biggest tax breaks to the top 1%. Uh, all Biden is doing is subsidizing more war, and they both have no legitimate answers to the immigration problem, which has been a problem for the last 100 years, anyways. It's almost like it's intentionally a failure, right? Um, so I'm glad that the union, and I hope this becomes a more leftist, working class union. That's what solidarity and being a leftist is. It's working class solidarity like this, where you unite your power as laborers, and say, no, we don't have to listen to you, and we don't have to agree with you, because what you're doing is wrong, and we're going to withhold our labor until things go the way that we see them morally just. And that is what democracy actually looks like in America. If everyone were to actually unite as a working class, reject the establishment system that actually oppresses you. Cool. Let me see. Let's go on. Let's see what else we got here. That's the latest. Uh-huh. All right. I guess that was it for today. It's a short day, which is fine because the last 2 weeks have been long, and I have a bit of an allergy, cold, allergy fever, I guess you could say. Um, I'll just reiterate, this live streaming weekly is live streaming for people to join in if they'd like, to read along or to comment on the ideas, on any ideas or thoughts or analysis on these articles. If nobody joins, then I'll do it for myself. I'm going to read these anyway, so I might as well live stream read them and keep them as a journal for myself. Um, if people have comments, feel free. If not, all is good. There is a description box if you feel like donating to Liberation News. They are part of PSL. and they provide good information. Like one of today's articles was uh, let's see, where is it from? People's Dispatch. So it's a great network of information here. As you can see, there's hyperlinks, and the cost here through a self-enlightened process through my life. I found myself to be at this part of the road where I am a leftist, and I practice Stoicism, uh, which, like I mentioned, is the four virtues. One of the most important is to be virtuous. So I want one of the main pillars of Stoicism, which doesn't mean being perfect, but means doing your best to be a good person, not only to the world and to your loved ones, but to yourself. It's more important you really can't. One thing I've learned is you really can't love and treat people with kindness if you can't do it to yourself first. And I think that is an issue with our society nowadays that teaches us to be so hard on ourselves, to be so dramatic, to be so impulsive or reactionary when we should be more patient. And I feel like, to me personally, Stoicism has helped me to be not only a better human being to myself and to others, but to be a better leftist as well, because it helps me articulate, be more patient with people, communicate, and be more sincere about what my goals are. Cool. So that's about it. Uh, Everybody have a good day. Have a great rest of the weekend, and free Palestine. See you next week.